Alright, so now we get to John Lennon's transition pictures. John Lennon was murdered in 1980, just after he'd released his double fantasy album. And he's walking out of the Dakota building in New York, and this guy comes up to him and says, "Will you sign my double fantasy album?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." So he signs it, he autographs it, goes off to a recording studio, comes back later on that night, and he's just going back into the Dakota building, and the same guy, Mark David Chapman, who took the album before, shoots him 4 times. And John Lennon dies on the way to hospital. A tragedy for the music world and everybody who felt so close to his songs. I think he had something like 25 #1 Billboard hits in America. That's incredible. And was a bit of a legend. There were a lot of negatives to him. I heard a lot of stuff about him that was negative. Like, he used to hit women and stuff, and didn't brag about it, but certainly talked about it. There were negatives. But I thought, okay, let's do his pictures and see what happened, because he was murdered. When I found him, and this is what makes it so peculiar, his form of disorientation after he was killed was more laid back than you'd imagine, really. There were these walls, flats, partitions, arranged like a maze. And he just looked at it in a very matter-of-fact way. He had his hands in his pockets, like his fingers, and he looked at it in a matter-of-fact way and said, "Oh, I've got to go down here? Okay." But he didn't understand the reason for him going down there. It was just like, "Oh, okay, there's another one. Round here. Okay, I'll go round here." So pragmatic. As he walked through these partitions, flats, whatever you want to call them, as he walked through them, they got smaller. So any illusion his consciousness had about what was going on slowly began to wane, and the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Now he was back in that tunnel I always see. Interestingly, it was vast, not a small, intimate thing like so many of them have had. And I think he realized at this point that greatness, and he was a great composer, great musician, greatness doesn't extend beyond the mortal spirit divide. I think that's what it was meant to say. You're not great after you die. You're great before you die. Huge tunnel, little person. He walks along, still not even looking back. It was like, "Oh, okay, right, whatever. This is what we're going to do." He walks along, and as he does, his feet begin to stick to the ground. There were strings attached to his shoes, if he were wearing shoes. This is obviously symbolic, but there were strings attached to the ground, and he pulled and he couldn't get his feet up. He wrenched one lot out and put his foot forward, and then another lot of strings that attached to his foot. He pulled this one, and then that would snap and he'd move forward. It was really arduous. I suspected that these strings were unresolved issues. Because I think, somewhere in my head, I have memories of him being quite a cruel person to certain people, or at certain times of his life. He could be very harsh, very cruel. He had a definite armor around him. And he tried to pull himself free of these things he couldn't escape, these regrets, or things he should have wound up, and probably would have done had he been living the full extent of his life. And he couldn't pull his feet away. It was like, no, you must remember what you did. You must remember those things you said. We're not letting you go. This is where grace stepped in. This is where the benevolence of the universe stepped in to greet him at this point. Now, somebody said, don't forget that grace is an undeserved favor from God. No, that's not necessarily true. I think that that's meta-narrative again. That's a tribal script. It is unconditional love extended to those who need it at a time that they need it. That's grace. That's the universe beaming at you, going, come on, let me help you. You're struggling. It's not undeserved. You're a child of the universe. It's your birthright. You have a gold-rimmed invitation to the dance. That's how special you are. That's why grace steps in when you need it. And grace stepped in. And somehow, by virtue of some kind of sweeping gesture, cut free his feet from these strings. And he was able to be free. I don't know if he was a spiritual person. I know he did the India thing and the Maharishi thing. In fact, you know those lyrics, there's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be, and all you need is love? That applied very much to this. It was almost like he wasn't spiritual, he was just really practical. Somebody told him that, and he put it in a lyric. There's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. That's how it felt in this particular place. It was like, oh, okay, all right. This is what I've got to deal with now. Once he's escaped these regrets, elements of shame, or whatever is holding him back, he comes to the next phase of the tunnel. And there's a hill. And it's almost like he goes, oh, I've got to climb this now? Really? Okay, I'll do that. And he's just like, so pragmatic and grounded in ways I would never expect. He walks to the top of the hill with grace at his back. And then he comes to the same chamber I always see, right? This room. Doesn't accept initially what this is. It's like, you're thinking I'm going to go through there. What's the point of going through there? He walks around it, this symbolic dome, well, this entry point to the afterlife. And there's nowhere else to go. There's no going back. So he looks at it and goes, oh, okay. And somehow he found some kind of like doorway at the back. He grabs in it and goes, okay, and slides in it like you would down a laundry chute or something, or just down a slide. Just goes in, yeah, okay, I'm going, right, okay. It was just bizarre, the practicality of it all, as though this were totally normal. He adjusted, he did what he had to do, he climbed the hill, he walked around, inspected the thing, and in. There was no sense of wonder or awe or trepidation even, or fear. Yeah, whatever, okay, I'm fine. It was very unsentimental. And yet he was aware, certainly for part of this journey, of things that were holding him back. Things he should have said. The big shoulds. People he should have been kinder to. These all seem to rankle at this particular stage. And it's only by the hand of the divine coming down and saying, you know, it's done. It's over. We'll sort that out later. In your life review. We'll sort that out then. For now, just come with us. That's what it felt like. This is a cleansing process. It's a decontamination process, taking you from the mortal world into the spirit world. That's what it always strikes me as. And the sooner you adapt to it and go with the flow of it, the easier it becomes and the better off you are. That's what it seems like. And that was John Lennon. There's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. That sums these pictures up perfectly. Alrighty, that's it. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I really appreciate it. Subscribe, like, share, follow me on Twitter if you want. It'll all be great. Cash Peters is my Twitter handle, man. Alright, but I'll see you very soon, guys. Stay safe. Bye.